Greetings, podcast fans. Welcome to the Punk Rock Priest podcast. I am your host, Kevin Vidinger, and this is episode 1. This podcast is a faith-adjacent podcast about rhythm, culture, and the outcast. My goal in all of this is building connections and intersectionality through conversation. I believe that through conversations, we begin to build relationships that help us move from other to kindred. And through that process, we begin to build the beloved community. So our conversation today is with my friend Adam Jenkins. I met Adam years ago in the Savannah music scene and was so incredibly blessed, and I don't use that word very often, but I was truly blessed to have gotten to know him through that. Adam started a very interesting project a number of years ago that's called the Inmate Project. It's a experiment, if you will, social experiment, maybe part education. It is certainly something that is eye-catching. You've probably come across a picture of Adam through his time in the protests in Atlanta. I certainly think this conversation speaks for itself, so I don't need to give a lot of build-up. But I will say this. Our conversation happened over the internet. Adam's in Atlanta, I'm in New York, and of course, Dan, our amazing producer, is in Savannah. So there was a couple spots where the internet got a little wonky and Adam's voice gets drawn out a little bit. So please be patient. You certainly can understand everything he says. It just sounds like we put the slow motion meter on him. So enjoy this conversation between myself, Dan, and my friend Adam.
Please don't make me care at all. I just don't want to care at all.
So today we have my friend Adam. I know Adam Jenkins III from Savannah music communities. Adam played in Between Symmetries.
Yeah.
That we played a show or two with. And we'll talk about that at some point. But Adam, the real reason I wanted to talk to you, and we'll jump right in and we'll kind of have a windy conversation, but I want to talk to you about your project, the Inmate Project. I want to hear more about it.
Most certainly.
Just kind of in general about what it's about and when you started and what you're up to now.
So I guess we have to rewind to, because it'll be 2 years come October. So 2018, fall, almost winterish of 2018. I had just kind of been seeing a lot of just kind of stories about racial injustice. I had been seeing the harsh realities of certain things starting to manifest itself on a pretty regular basis. And I wanted to figure out a way to shine a light on these things without necessarily feeding into hashtag or social media culture. As far as there's a lot of people, and America's amazing in the sense of you can log into your phone, say whatever you want to say on a subject, what's happening in that day, and then go to your job the next day and, out of sight, out of mind almost. And for me, I didn't want to be the type of guy who could post a rant on Twitter, on Facebook, or on Instagram, and then go back to normality in a sense. And so I wanted to figure out a way to just kind of protest my own rights and put something together that could translate to people, that could spawn hard conversations in rooms that otherwise these subjects wouldn't be in. And so I did a lot of research, and around that time, not too far away from that time or around that time, a good artist of mine actually. My favorite artist, J. Cole, he did this thing called the For Your Eyes Only tour. And when he was going on tour, he was wearing this jumpsuit and he had this stage where it almost looked like he was going from scene to scene. And he was wearing this jumpsuit at this entire concert, and these people are here, and there's hundreds or thousands of people here, and they're seeing this Black man sing songs and, you know, sing his songs clearly that have so much history, that have so much enlightening information about our culture. And so I was like, the aesthetic of an African-American free man wearing a jumpsuit is very powerful. And that's where the first idea kind of spawned and came from. But I was like, what if we took that and did it from the standpoint of doing something in an everyday situation? And so I had some conversations with my partner's father, who's in law, and he executes law for, you know, his responsibilities and for his occupation. And so we had a lot of conversations about the legalities, how it would affect my community, especially it starting in Savannah. And so I wound up doing it. I ordered this jumpsuit, custom made from a company that I'm quite familiar with over in California. It took a minute for them to, you know, send it over here, but I had to get it tailor made. And the coolest thing about it, getting it tailor made, when I took it to this spot in like south side of Savannah. And it was these amazing Asian women who just kept telling me, like, we're going to make you sexy man. We're going to make you sexy man. Like, they just kept telling me this.
And they didn't have to do it. You already are.
No,
I mean.
No, oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And so, like, I'm going in here and I'm letting them know, like, how I want this. They're fitting it on my body, because I walk in here and they're even starting to talk about how prison life is and how when you wear this, you lose every sense of humanity and you lose identity. These jumpsuits of your figure, so 6'4", 6'5" almost, doesn't really matter. You put this thing on and you look just like everybody else, and that's psychological, purposeful programming. And so while I'm putting this on and they're fitting me, it was very serendipitous, because I looked to the left of me and there was a probation officer from the Chatham County PD department who was right next to me. And I didn't even know this lady was a probation officer, but she's putting her suit on, she's got her heels on, and she's looking at me, and she just keeps looking at me. She's like, I'm a probation officer for the city, and I just have to say that this is really cool. And that was like the introductory and the spawn of me saying, okay, I think what I'm doing right now really could do some positivity. You know, I think it could really address some things and make people who even work for the system see things in a different light. So.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and for those listening at home that don't know Adam is a very striking, tall, young Black man. And the jumpsuit he's talking about is orange. And it says, stop targeting
black men on the back of it. Yeah.
So it is a very striking, very striking image to see.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because I started wearing it, and at first I did it every day. So for the first 6 months, segueing into like how I executed it early, for the first 6 months of it, I did it every day. And it was very, very difficult. I had to get over my heart pumping really fast, walking past like law enforcement. Sometimes I'd be walking downtown, past like the Board of Education, Chippewa Square, Johnson. And I would walk past these dudes, they're holding guns, they're just looking me up and down, they don't say anything. And the more I kept walking past them, the more empowered I felt. Because they couldn't do anything, and this is probably the first time in their life that they've even seen someone wearing this on the other side of a cage. You know, I have my ID on me, I have my license on me, I have some money in my pocket. Like, everything about what you're seeing right now breaks down the visual of what this has always looked like to everybody. And then we go to start going to Foxy Loxy. That was the place that I frequent, and I'm sitting down. And, you know, SCAD people are coming up to me and asking me, like, can I take a picture of this? What's all this about? This is amazing. Like, you have so much courage to be doing this. And those stories and all of these things and these transactions that I had with a lot of people in Savannah, it was very positive. And then there was other times where it wasn't so positive, where we would go out. I remember one time we went to Congress Street Social Club, and I was all the way, me and a group of my friends were all the way on the right side of the bar. You know, of course, I'm still the guy in the jumpsuit. We're just hanging, you know, they were having some drinks. I'm drinking some water. But I look to the left and my friends are like, don't look over there because they look like they're going to throw something at you. And there's a group of people who are like figuratively kind of looking like they're going to throw bottles of like glass beers at me for no reason. Like I haven't had any type of conversation with them. I don't know them, but they're just like laughing and like, we're going to hit him with this. And so all my friends are like, let's just go, you know, let's whatever. And so it's been a mix, but I would say 95% of the transactions that I've had with the Inmate Project have all been positive. All been positive. I think you broke up a little bit. I can't hear you.
I can't hear you, Kevin.
Oh, I can hear you now.
I put my mute on, so
Oh.
there you go. Yeah, downtown Savannah at night, and those bars can be.
It can get. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Yeah.
I do. So tell me a little bit about, if you don't mind, talking about your partner Kristen and the experience that you guys have had being a biracial couple. You know, maybe just the experience in general, and maybe kind of the experience of her walking around with you while you're wearing your jumpsuit.
So me and Kristen, being in an interracial relationship it's funny because I was always brought up in a home. I'm a preacher's kid, so I guess there is some like bias here. But my mom is one of the first ministers and apostles ordained as woman in Savannah. Some from a lineage of like history within my community in a way. And so my mom always told me, and she had a big struggle with Savannah Christianity in the sense of small town Christianity, in the sense of it can be very misogynistic when you get down to like what women should do and what women should not be able to do. And my mom stood 10 toes down on the sense of God can use anyone. And God has always used, and purposely always used, the lowest person on the totem pole to prove his point of, I can use the worst possible person in this situation to do my work. And so
yeah, I get that. Exhibit A, me. Yeah.
Yeah. And so from knowing this, love in general has never had a color to me. It's never, because Christ's biggest command was to love one another. That was like one of his biggest things above all else. And so for me, interracial relationships, I've always looked at beautiful people. I don't really care what color people are. And when I meet someone who has the same type of energy and understands that narrative and executes that narrative in their own life, i.e. my partner, Kristen, it becomes a beautiful thing. She's from Traverse City, Michigan, like all the way, basically Canada. And I'm from Savannah, Georgia. And we met downtown after one night I played the wormhole, and I was out with a friend of mine, and we were just walking, and I literally met her downtown. And from like 5 years ago, and from that point, we've been talking, we've been in communication. She's traveled the world and been abroad and has done a lot of really cool things within her own community as well. And she's actually, a lot of people don't even know that she has worked for the mayor of Los Angeles. She's worked for the government. She's been she's a huge, huge, huge advocate and huge fan and huge proponent of government work and positivity within government work. But one of the biggest things she was doing over when she lived in LA was helping out the Jewish community and homelessness in LA, which they're still trying to figure out to this day. But so we've both been very passionate. Like, we both have love, and our heart goes out to those who are lesser than, or those who have been oppressed. Like, I understand hurt and I understand oppression more so than the next person, just because of the things I've gone through in my life and some of the things she's gone through in her life. As to how it feels to be in the South in an interracial relationship, I think that there's still a lot of growth to be had. I think there's a lot of microaggression, particularly when it comes to being out in public and just walking on Broughton, or specifically in Savannah. Now, being in Atlanta, and I know I'm kind of everywhere because this subject has so many layers to it. Being in Atlanta, because Atlanta is much more diverse, you don't really feel the heat of interracial relationships. I would say interracial relationships in Atlanta are a pretty common thing. In Savannah, you have Savannah that's blue, and then everything surrounding Savannah is like red. So you have a very liberal city in Savannah, but you have these cities old school, very, and so our walk being in Savannah was decent. I would say that we're more akin to staying to our close circle. We have a very close knit group of friends, and we don't really move outside of it. And all of our friends are super supportive of who we are and our love. But I would say that the South as a whole in general really does need to kind of speed up the process of realizing that America is much more integrated than what it ever used to be. I mean, African Americans and minorities have actually now migrated farther out west and way up north versus when it was 1950 and most all minorities kind of lived here just because of, slaves being brought over and families not migrating that far. And so, yeah, I think that our relationship has been something that has given me life. It means a lot to come back home and know that the person that I lay my head down cares about me, but everyone who looks like me and everyone in this world who needs help.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you talking about that with us. You mentioned earlier that you're a preacher's kid.
Yeah.
And obviously that is an interesting subject to me. I have two preacher's kids at home.
Yeah.
And poor kids. I'd love to hear about your experience a little more, because you talked a little bit about it with your mom, but your experience growing up in the South. The cliche is that the most divided hour in the Americas on Sunday mornings. And it's a cliche because it's true. Mm-hmm. But what was your experience growing up in the South, being a preacher's kid, as far as the culture of church?
So being a preacher's kid in the South, I had a very unique journey, because though I was a preacher's kid, and my mom comes from the Pentecostal faith, which is a very, speaking in tongues, very I would expressive, you know what I mean? Just very expressive, right. Very hands in the air, clapping, all these things, laying hands on one another. And so I always like to tell people that I got to see a tale of almost 3 cities, because that was my main denomination. But the private school that I went to for all my formative years in grade school, lower tier grade school, was a spot called Veritas Academy that's at IPC Christian downtown. So yeah, like I was in class with Terry Johnson's daughter. Abby Johnson is an amazing person. I love that family. And it was amazing to get taught Christianity from kind of a Renaissance, urban, almost like European type of standpoint. They taught us about Martin Luther and Socrates and Aristotle, and then like brought us from Rome over to America. Right. And how certain things spawned out, and King Arthur and all this other stuff. And so reading like Dante's Inferno at 10 years old and having to write papers about predestination when I was like 12 has like sped up my personal development. And so that was like where I was going for school. And then I had friends. My mom had got me kind of really into community stuff, just because she was going through a very rough divorce. And I think she figured out that her child having a net in a community will give them the best shot of not falling into anything they shouldn't. So just keeping your child really ingrained into like positive things within the community, whether it's like maybe Boy Scouts or, being on athletics, anything to just keep a kid busy. And so I would go to this other church on Hodgson Memorial on the south side, kind of midtown, called Emmanuel Baptist Church. Mm-hmm. It's right by the Oglethorpe Mall. Yeah. And so I went over there and that was like Southern Baptist. And so I'm seeing like three different forms of religion and Christianity, though, you know, the entire thing is, you know, Jesus is here and everything kind of falls down under or whatever you want to go ahead and call that. But I definitely got to see three different things. And I think it was very essential for me to do that because it kind of let me know the quarrels that churches kind of have with one another or things that they're all trying to address and trying to morph very early. I would see that a Southern Baptist church kind of had more organizational skills in the sense of the first Sunday of every month is like the time that they have their taxes and all this other stuff, and they're sitting down and they're really getting down to the nitty gritty of how they're allocating funds to keep the church within that community. And then I would go over to my Pentecostal church and they would have revivals and they would have tents set up all throughout the city at a certain amount of time. People would just show up. I remember even sleeping under pews because Pentecostal church is long. Like it is like 5, 6, 7. It can just go and go and go. And then I go to IPC and I get visits from over there and I go over there and it's a little more, it's very proper. It's handbells and, you know, just different things. I would say that the most development that I think I did have throughout the entire process was the fact that my mom was willing to let me just kind of dabble in every single one. Never had any questions about anything. And it was amazing to go to other churches and realize that they're telling me to question everything. Like it's okay to have faith, but it's also okay to be unsure and to question yourself. Because if you read Romans, I mean, that's all really Romans is. It's my favorite book in the Bible. It's down saying, you know, the things I find my needing to do, I don't do, and the things I meant about internal struggle. And I think a lot of blind faith is within Christianity too. And I think sometimes it's in Southern Baptist faith, I think it was like Sunday, you just show up, you sing these hymns, and you kind of just have to like believe and like, you're young, don't have sex, you don't want to go to hell. And it's like, I can't ask why from like a scientific standpoint, why shouldn't I do this? Like there's, you know, it was just like everyone, but the constant, again, it was still, this is a place that you can come and be free. This is a place that you can come and lay your burdens down, because I would say that churches are just as essential as hospitals, you know, because at least when you walk into a hospital, I can pull up an x-ray and see something's broken. But if I walk into a church, something in here or something up here may be missing. And that requires much more attention and much more gentleness from a minister or a preacher and much more understanding and discernment.
Yeah. How did that formation inform the Inmate Project? Did it?
This is what I'll say. I'll say that the Inmate Project was something, because at that time in like the mid 2000s, late 2000s, early 2000s, churches in Savannah to me were kind of still segregated.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was a purposeful thing, but if you went to a Presbyterian church, you probably didn't see a lot of Black people or minorities in general. And if you went to a Southern Baptist church, and specifically Southern Baptist, might not have been a lot of Black people there, because I remember my family, me and my mom being the only Black people in this entire church, entire church. But if you go to a Pentecostal church in the South, that's basically where the community starts. Like when we talk about civil rights, it started at Ebenezer Baptist, it's like right across the street from where we stay currently right now. A lot of workshops for racial injustice and social injustice and how do we raise awareness started within the Black church. So, and then you have pictures of popes and nuns and monks and everyone from all over the world. As soon as Martin Luther King has his idea together, they're flying in saying, we're right by you, you know? So I would say that the Inmate Project was something that I started because of my family. My family and specifically my brother and my father have both been heavily intertwined with law enforcement as far as some of the decisions they've made in their lives and, you know, things that they've done. And we all make mistakes, but I started the Inmate Project because I wanted to know, and I wanted them to know, that as Black people in this country, we don't really have to just sit here and take what happens to us. Like, we can research our rights in the Constitution. We can research our rights and what we're legally able to do and what we're not able to do. And then we can execute. So we can strategize, we can organize, and then we can mobilize. You know, we don't have to necessarily always just have to, you know, sit here, have these things happen to us, and then just kind of it's if I could just sum this up in one good sentence, it's just the fact that the enemy in the system knows that fear is goes hand in hand with control. And so when I'm afraid of something, or I'm looking at someone and they're holding a gun, I'm looking at an officer, if I'm afraid of him, he already has me. Like, if I'm afraid of walking down this road, I'm already not free. Like, if I don't feel like I can walk down this side of the street because you're over here, then this isn't the America that we're both afforded.
Yeah.
So just the Inmate Project was me attacking fear, because we don't have to be afraid. Like, we do not have to be afraid at all. And I'm really, really, really appreciative, and I'm very proud of this generation and the younger generation as well. Like, Gen Z, they're not having it. Like, they are very bold, and like, this is wrong. This is why it's wrong. And we're not arguing. I don't even want to talk to you about why it's wrong. It's wrong. You just need to agree. And I'm on that side. I'm completely on that side. So I would say that my faith definitely, it kind of spawned a little bit of the Inmate Project, in the sense of, I feel like Jesus would be out here protesting right now.
100%.
He was a very radical person. And I think a lot of people they don't pay enough attention to the story of when he walked into the temple and he like smashed everything and said, "This is a den of thieves." Like, no one really pays attention to that. It's just like, oh, he loved everybody. It's like, no, this dude like legitimately destroyed things within a church to prove a point and to get his message across.
He had a whip. I mean, you know, one way or other, he was either threatening people with a whip or he hit them with it. I mean,
so it was one of the two. It was one of the two. And I think people need to, for me, when I go back and I read different texts, because I think the text is very relative, right? Because everyone's going to subject themselves to whatever narrative they have in their mind. So if you want Jesus to be this, because it all fits for what you need it to be. But when it comes down to human rights, Jesus would be sitting here saying the same exact things that we're saying right now.
Yeah.
Because he died for the ability for me and you to be able to talk, and for me and you to be able to walk down a road, and for me to be able to walk down a road and not die, or for me to be able to close my door and know that a police officer is not going to just come in here and kill me, or for me to be able to go on a run and know that I don't have to look behind my back and see two white men killing me because they think I look suspicious.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
yeah. Well, you mentioned Dr. King, and I want to pivot in kind of our final part of our conversation. I will say one thing that people forget about Dr. King is that he was a pastor.
Yes.
I mean, all of what he did was part of, came out of his experience, but it was informed by his faith. And that very thing that you're talking about, that Jesus was this radical that stood up for social justice. Mm-hmm. But Dr. King talked about the beloved community a lot. Mm-hmm. And since our connection is music, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the beloved community and the music community and what your experience there. I mean, I will say my bias in this question is this. While I experienced the beloved community to an extent as in the church, I think the place that it's been the most palpable has been in the music community, especially playing with Jeff and Dan and getting to meet people like, you guys and the people we've met up and down the Eastern Seaboard and even in Europe. I think I have felt or have seen what the kingdom of God can really look like in the beloved community and the music community. But tell me about your experience in that, because you've done all sorts of different kinds of music. I mean, you played with Between Symmetries that we played with, and then of course the great sound engineer that we had, Sprinkles as we call him, Michael, played with you, played drums.
He's amazing.
But you also have a new project that you worked on recently that is a completely different direction from the music of Between Symmetries.
So I've always been a firm believer in that music is the greatest medium that we have. Like, even from the sense of I can put on a hip hop song and some kids in a gated community can play this and feel like they live in Section 8 housing. Like it's pretty amazing. Like, I think that when it comes to creativity, and I think the beauty in creativity is that we are all painters, and that all of us, we all have different colors to further and paint our canvases. And for me, when you specifically talk about like different forms of music, for me, music was never in a box for me. Like, when it comes to even guitar itself, I taught myself how to play music by ear. Like, everything I know how to do, I've never had a lesson or anything. I've just sat here and I've just kind of figured it out. And
well, as somebody that had to have lots of lessons, that's really messed up. So
I was just a very persistent kid, man. Like, my mom used to have to tell me to put a guitar down because I would play for, I put in my 10,000 hours. I will say that, years ago. And so I think that the community that we were able to see was like like house shows in general. Like, if we just start there, Savannah house shows circa like 2015, 2016 was some of the most amazing shows I think any of us will ever remember. We were pulling up and going to houses at Gatson, these crazy Victorian style homes that these kids would just stay in. They would clear it out and have these crusty punk rock bands come in, these young kids, old dudes, it doesn't even matter. You have all these people here, and they're here for a singular purpose of needing to get through a week, because I don't think a lot of people realized how much they were going through. And a lot of people are hurt. That was the biggest thing that I used to see when I would go to shows, is that like in between sets, everybody would go outside, smoke a cigarette, drink a beer, and you could start to see where people's minds were going. Like, I'm here because today I didn't make enough money and I have to figure this out. I'm here because I really just need to let some of my anger out because I had a talk with a friend and it didn't go the way I needed it to go. It just didn't even matter. And so for us, especially on the latter end of us playing music, our last album, I wanted it to be something very emotional. I wanted it to be something where we were screaming and yelling and singing and maneuvering in between and using timbral dynamics for that in between, that gray area in music. Because I realized how much hurt there is in this world. Even going from that and like being where I am now, and even with these protests, man, I think the worst thing that's happened so far, specifically when it comes to what's affected the music community, is the fact that live shows have kept people alive. Like, there's people walking around right now because of live music.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason why they've been able to keep making it. And my heart goes out to these people because I understand. I'm not that far removed from even feeling that way in certain ways, where it's like, you know, I remember having band practice was something that I look forward to, you know, like this job sucks. Can't wait to get off of work and wail away for 5 hours. So I think that the music scene has a sense of community that's already built in. Like, there's already an unspoken community within music. And I think there's a lot of people like you and me who we clicked immediately when we met. Like, we were like, oh my gosh, you drum and you're a reverend. I thought it was so cool because I used to always tell you, like, you're a reverend drumming in a rock band. This is something I had never seen before. And then for me, it was like, you're the only Black guy playing rock music right now in Savannah. Like, there really isn't anyone else who looks like you leading, like fronting and leading a band, playing these shows in these places. So I think I really want to see music get back to where it needs to go. As far as, I can't wait till the pandemic we can figure out this curve and figure things out so we can get right back to where things were before. But when it comes to even my new music, again, I've never been in a box. I was told very young that what I was doing wasn't acceptable. It wasn't really cool in like 2005. It wasn't cool to play Green Day. Like everyone was listening to 50 Cent and Young Jeezy, and they're like, this isn't Candy Shop. What are you doing? You know, so it was like very, very rough. And it's like, just to look back and see almost kind of like me being a little bit farther ahead, because now like Urban Outfitters is selling like Slayer t-shirts and like Metallica t-shirts. And it's like, I've been playing. And
like
I've been
holes
like,
are in it, yeah.
And sometimes I get so mad because I'm like, I'm proud of myself for staying resilient and not listening to anyone enough to stop. That's what I will say, because I had a lot of people tell me, people used to call me white for playing the music that I play. I mean, I heard this as a kid, especially in Savannah, Georgia. And now the same people who said these things are all now rapping and want me to like produce and play guitar and bass on their music. And it's like, okay, well, I understand, but that's the beauty in being multifaceted, because I really take pride in not having a box shrouded around creativity. I think you're just supposed to make things that sound good to you and put them out there. And if it's rock music, Americano, folk, and rap, put it all together. And if it's real to you, it's real to you, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's crazy. That, I mean, I will say the best musicians in Savannah are the ones that are playing Sunday mornings in the Pentecostal churches. I mean, you know Robert Sanders,
No,
the drummer. You know Robert?
I think I'm friends with. I don't know. That name sounds familiar.
He's played in churches, but I mean, he played with Greg Reddick a couple times doing stuff. He plays with Steve.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's all that I ever wanted to be as a drummer and never was, because
they've got chops. They've got chops, because the rudimentary work that it takes to be in a Pentecostal church on a Sunday morning is insane. Like your Pentecostal music comes from the soul. It's very expressive. Again, because Pentecostal itself is very impromptu. It's very in the moment. It's very the spirit is flowing in me, and I'm just gonna do whatever I'm gonna do. And so as a drummer, because you're carrying everything, your eyes have to be in sync with the organ player and the preacher, because he's doing runs where he's like, and I said, and it's and then you got to keep it, you know, you have to keep your hand here and know that at any given moment you're going from here to there to here to there. And so, but Southern Baptist church that I go to, it's very, we're reading the book, we're standing here, we're all in robes, and it's very organized, and it's very that. Even the IPC church. But yeah, you have to be a very talented musician to play in Pentecostal music. With guitar, it's a lot of vamping. So you have a lot of just repetitious, almost blues lines, because a lot of blues, I mean, slave hymnals and Christian hymnals and certain things and spirituals came, and then blues came. So that's why if you hear certain chords and notes, you could put blues chords over Pentecostal music and it works.
Yeah. It's all connected, man.
Yeah, very, very connected. And I think a lot of people would, if a lot of people knew, I don't think a lot of people would detest what Christianity has really spawned here in America, because the argument could be made that rock and roll music wouldn't even be a thing had it not been for Sister Rosetta Tharpe, you know, way back in the day, playing these hymns and spirituals on a Gibson SG. And then like years later, rock and roll starts to kind of become a thing.
Yeah, man. All those people played in churches early on.
Every single one of them. I mean, Beyonce's from church. She's the greatest thing walking around the world right now. Like, you know, so many people that we look up to come from the church. And that's why the church is so essential, because I think the church, it's almost like the church, when you sign like a record deal, you have like artist development, and these people are already having artist development every Sunday. Like every Sunday they perform, they're getting better at singing. They're getting better at guitar. They're getting better at drums. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, Adam, that's about all I've got for you today, man. I really appreciate you taking some time out and talking to us.
I really appreciate being here. I know that my mind was kind of all over the place maybe, but everything to me is intersectional in the sense of it all comes back to this one place. So even if we go from here to there to over here, but we can bring it back to right where we were at before. That's the point. And the only thing that I would like to say is, number one, Black lives matter.
Mm-hmm.
Black lives have always mattered, because we were told when we were brought over here that our lives didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like 3/5 of a man was something that was told to us.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, when we were born into this world, that was something, when you're told and it's learned to you and it's programmed in you that your life doesn't matter. And that's why I like to say Black lives matter, and they always have, because my community and my mom and my grandma always told me my life mattered.
Mm-hmm.
We're just having to sit here and protest to remind people that we do matter.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want everyone to just bask in this moment that we're in. Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Elijah, Rayshard Brooks, these names should be embedded into the minds of every single American, and really everyone in the world, because I don't think we've ever been at a place where we've even been able to see Black Lives Matter at the U.S. Embassy in Korea. That's crazy.
Yeah.
There's a huge, huge banner over there hanging up. I saw it about 2 weeks ago or something like that on a post. And I was like, this is history. And so I think we're in a really good spot. And I think pressure needs to stay right where it's applied. And I think policies and legislations need to be addressed.
Yeah, man.
Because
I appreciate you for doing the work and putting
Yeah.
it out there.
Yeah, that's all I just wanted to say. I wanted to end it on that note. I thank you and I appreciate you guys so much for this. I have to get back to getting my house in order because I've been here for 4 days and I still have boxes everywhere.
Oh, that's all right. That happens. All right, Adam, you have a wonderful day. Thanks for talking to us. Tell Kristen we said hi.
Thank you so much. I'll be in contact with you, okay, my brother? I'll be praying for you.
The same, buddy. See ya.
Thank you.
Well, friends, I hope you enjoyed our conversation today. I also hope it inspires you to begin a new conversation with someone, one that will help move the needle from other to kindred in your lives. So the last thing I want to do is share a little music with you. Music has always been a really integral part of my life. So each episode will end with a song or a band that was inspired by our conversation. This week, of course, we spoke with Adam Jenkins, who played in the band Between Symmetries. It is the band through which I built a relationship with Adam. So this week, I'm going to share a song that was on, I believe it was their last album that they recorded together before everybody kind of moved away. It's a song that was inspired by a bar/music venue that was really important in my life and important in the lives of a lot of Savannah people. This place is called the Jinx, and unfortunately the Jinx closed this month. And so after many, many years of serving the music community of Savannah, we all mourn the loss of the Jinx. But I do hear that it's only a temporary loss, and like the phoenix, the Jinx will rise from the ashes. So enjoy this song, The Jinx by Between Symmetries.